Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. It's a show about weirdos, doggone it. My name is John Fahey. Joining me as ever, prettiest boy under the sun, an absolutely handsome, giant, gorgeous slab of a man, Mr. Aaron Joseph Pita. To his right, my left, Mr. Matt Brousseau, the North Star of human morality. Gentlemen, both of us have returned.
Mm-hmm.
Both of you have returned.
All of us.
I left a little bit out there.
Three. Left a piece of myself in the country. I don't like to talk about it. Log cabins are 2 for 1. I think we got some well-needed rest for sure out in the cabin. That was a fantastic time orchestrated by our Matt Brousseau.
That's right. Shout out to Barb and Larry.
Barb and Larry, yes, putting us up in their family cabin. No electricity, no cell phone reception, a landline, a lot of time to reflect.
Yes.
Do some handiwork around the place.
Some reading, writing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boozing.
Quite a bit of boozing.
Uh-huh.
Quite a bit of boozing.
Called some people on the telephone. Some people called us back.
Yeah, we did. We did talk to a few listeners.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like by the time we were starting to call, we were like, man, we're gonna like wake this person up. They have a job and shit. Like, because we were like half in the bag by the time we started dialing.
Mm-hmm.
We recorded some episodes out there that will be on the Patreon. They're gonna be heavily edited because
Yes.
we are 4 sheets to the wind.
Yeah.
It was really fun. We did have a really cool time out there. There was
A lot of Trivial Pursuit.
a lot of Trivial Pursuit, some poker,
A
some
little
chess. We did quite a bit of the George Bush Dana Carvey impression for some reason.
We did quite a bit of that. Quite a bit of
Southern drawl.
Southern drawl.
Just because we were in the country.
a little
Like,
Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
A little.
Oh, Matt was so pissed. He's so pissed. I get it.
But if you heard Mike Tyson on Joe Rogan, you would have understood that it was Joe Rogan and Tom Segura like really kind of like licking his balls the whole time.
Yeah, nerding out on Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Yeah, which obviously he's great, whatever. But like Mike Tyson was being really cool, and like he's like, you know, that's like cool kind of Zen persona or whatever. So he was just like, what kind of music you listening to, Joe?
Just totally different.
So yeah, like he was talking about how he fought in a ferocious fashion.
Yeah, you guys were stuck on that for a while.
That stayed there for a
We
while.
talked about various fashions
Yeah.
that could rhyme with that were alliterative with ferocious.
At first, I started fighting in a festive fashion, but I was just partying a lot.
Then I started fighting in a flirtative fashion. Then I just ended up fucking a lot of dudes. I'm sorry.
But we were stuck on it because
We were drunk.
But like if you follow Mike Tyson throughout the years, he really emphasizes that he kind of wants that to be his legacy, the ferocity of the fashion. But he brings it up so much that it's just like it's so make funnable to me. Like it's just like, yeah, we get it. Like you were crazy and vicious, and like, but also, are you trying to let yourself off the hook for biting a dude's ear and going to prison
And
like,
offering a zookeeper $10,000 to punch a gorilla.
right? Yeah, doing crazy shit. But yeah, he talks about being crazy in that Rogan episode pretty openly, and like, you know, is like kind of like willing to laugh at it. But we were really stuck on just riffing on Mike Tyson talking about shit, and then always returning to, you ever fuck with single parenting, Joe? Like the question, like
The pause. And
the
then,
pause, and then
Hey, Joe. Like 2 kids, you know, like when you're like you're doing a slumber party, or like you're out camping, and you're just laying down, and then there's like that silence of like 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, John. He's still awake.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
So we heard some late night leaking on the Remember me and you got up to look at the drain that was
Right, during a ferocious thunderstorm.
Yeah, and
It was
then
raining in a ferocious fashion.
and I Aaron didn't get up, so he's like,
I heard you guys get up. I was like, dude, fuck this.
he's like, hey, what was that? I was like, oh man, it was just like, this like drain dripping on itself and making noise like on the aluminum, whatever it was like. And then I just started going like, it was rapping on my chamber door. And then Aaron just replied, you ever fuck with birds, Joe? And I was like, I went to bed and was like in a giggle fit.
What was the first thing you said in the morning?
Yes.
You ever fuck with birds, Joe?
Hey, Joe, you ever fuck with ravens?
But if you listen to that interview with Tyson, you'll get it. It's so fucking dumb. And then we just kept it up. And Aaron just kept apologizing to Matt, and Matt was like, "It's fine.
I've tuned it out.
At one point, I just went. You guys were inside. I just went outside for like 2 hours and ran.
At least. Like, I'm gonna go read.
Yeah, and Aaron had to be the one to tell me like, we're in where his bed is. We need to get the fuck out of here. And I was like, oh yeah, he's because Matt was in the living room, just like draw a picture of this cabin. It was a big, beautiful cabin, glorious, huge outdoor porch.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was so like it was rainy or whatever because it's Northern California, but like it was so beautiful.
Yeah, not cold, just wet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was like, I mean,
Fireplace, indoor stove.
Aaron was as soon as you saw that fireplace, I knew you're like, I gotta start all these fires.
I got a problem. I got a real problem.
yeah, that was like the project you were taking on, and then I was just like,
You ever fuck with pyromania?
you ever fuck with the dawn of civilization, Joe? Like, so I would get up, make breakfast or whatever, and we'd start fucking around with the fire, and then like we would be like, all right, well, what are we gonna do now? And then like,
nap.
and we would take a nap, and then we'd be like, all right, what drugs do we have? And like one time, me and Aaron,
Not that many.
Not that many.
No.
Purposefully.
Yeah.
I went up there to not do any drugs.
Right, yeah, drugs are for life.
Drugs just help me get through the day-to-day struggle that is existence.
That's
I went up there to detox so I can read then
Doug
talks.
Stanhope bit is, why are you getting hammered on the weekend? He's like, that's your time. It's like, get drunk on the job. It's like, that's somebody else's time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really fucking great. We like we met up with some weirdo locals. We went around. We like we just we really slowed down and got a huge break from life. It was so good, Matt. Thank you so much.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was on the verge of breaking.
Yeah.
I think I did break a little bit, but
Before
Can you tell?
or during?
a little bit of both.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I'm all right.
breaking from the solace of
Oh, just breaking,
yeah.
being broken.
Yes, yeah.
But I feel good now.
Good.
I hit the ground running.
Good. Do you remember everything we talked about last week?
Yes.
Oh
Victoria
yes, yeah, Victoria.
Woodhull.
Yeah, that was. I mean,
Yes.
it was so rich.
All the fucking hooking.
Yeah, and the mysticism and the mesmerism
Yes,
and
of
the
course.
magnetism
Of
and
course.
the abuse by every man involved in the story.
Pretty much.
Which is so out of character.
The endless scamming. There
The
was
snake oil salesmaning.
Yes, the brilliant child and
Life elixirization.
the dumb toothless baby child.
And who could forget
Yeah.
Tennessee?
Yes. And
Utica, who is the hot one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And they all play a part in part 2, Victoria Woodhull's story.
So where we last left off, they were going to New York.
They Victoria Demosthenes came to Victoria in a vision in Pittsburgh, and he told her to go to New York, where she will find a grand house for herself.
Mm-hmm.
And so her Colonel Blood and Tennessee head off to New York City.
Colonel Blood, that's right.
So this is 1868. Victoria is 30. Tennessee is about 22 now.
Oh God,
Ripe.
And so in this time, a brief a little context. During this time, women's suffrage movement is blowing up.
Yeah.
And there are two main groups. There's the American Women's Suffrage Association, the AWSA, and the National Women's Suffrage Association. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony were with the NWSA, and people like Lucy Stone were with the AWSA. AWSA was much more conservative. They didn't want to change. Their sole focus was women's suffrage.
Yes.
Nothing else. Not marriage laws. Not
Temperance.
Not temperance. Not
Abolition.
not abolition. Nothing. I mean, and this is right after the Civil War, but still, Johnson's the Reconstruction has been delayed by Johnson, President Johnson. But meanwhile, the NWSA, they want to change. They want divorce to be easier. They want women to be treated better. They want the 15th Amendment repealed and replaced with an amendment the same amendment, but gives women the right to vote.
Right.
And the AWSA said that amendment will never pass, so we can't get rid of it. And the NWSA, Elizabeth Cady Stanton would make speeches where she would say racist things, and it was a surprise to everybody. At one time she had housed Frederick Douglass, so it was even a surprise to him.
What kind of racist things?
She would use the phrase Mongoloid.
Oh.
Saying that the Mongoloid and the Chinamen have the right to vote. They don't even know what the Constitution is.
Meanwhile, us white women.
Yes.
So why does the...
Yes.
Right. Just because they're men.
Right.
So she invokes race so that she can push the gender agenda. The agenda is what it's called.
Right. But when she's saying Mongoloid, is she meaning...
She means black.
Oh, really?
Oh.
And
I didn't see that coming.
And there are other phrases. She never used the N-word, but it doesn't really matter when you're using other phrases that mean that. So New York City, 1868. About 20,000 prostitutes, 1.3% of the population estimated to be prostitutes. That'd be about 100,000 today. It was one of the only jobs where women had a semblance of control over their life. And the prostitution houses, one of them on Green Street, one of the Patreons we read, there was a Gentleman's Guide to New York at that time.
Yes.
A little black book that you could pick up and read to find out what each house of prostitution, or assignation as they called it, what each house was and where the good ones and bad ones
And how agreeable.
Yeah. It was a Yelp review for the cat houses of NYC.
Yeah, except much, much better written.
And the prostitution houses, they would do things like they would subsidize places like the Midnight Mission for the rescue of fallen women. So they were actually helping houses that helped women that weren't prostitute houses. Right. So they had a big reach. So Vicky and Tennessee, they arrive and they start visiting houses of prostitution to find out what's going on in town. Colonel Blood shows up and he takes a job working at his brother's newspaper in New Jersey. And of course, Buck, immediately he shows up. He starts selling his elixir in all these prostitution houses.
Now, Buck is the father of the Woodhull girl.
And now, is there still laudanum in the elixir?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Always. Of course.
Good.
But Victoria and Tennessee also, they would sleep with people, but they also started selling things themselves. They would sell things like vinegar-soaked sponges that were douches that women could use to not get pregnant. But Victoria, she wrote out a whole breakdown of the finances of a first-class prostitute. So this is how prostitution was for women back then. A prostitute would pay $40 a week to a madam to rent a room. 20% of the profits would go to the madam. About $40 then is about $700 today. So $700 a week
for the house
to rent a room in a house. The madams would pay politicians $100 a week for protection, and once a month, police would round up women, and the ladies would pay a $100 fine to get out immediately. And prostitutes would then pay the patrolman $3 to $10 a week, and the patrolman would always be allowed to fuck for free.
Yep, sounds right.
Jesus Christ.
And she would, a few years later, she would point out in a speech that there are 10 men to every one prostitute. And she writes, there are many popular fallacies about prostitution, that the average life of a prostitute is 4 years, but is caused by dissolute living, drinking, and the diseases which usually accompany promiscuous intercourse. The real truth is that those prostitutes who never drink, who never permit themselves to become diseased, are among the healthiest women and hold their beauty and vigor to an advanced age. In the first episode, I talked about what happened to all of these women who miscarried and gave birth 10, 15 times in the course of a decade. and how we would just destroy their health and their brain.
Yeah.
And she says, I know hundreds of wives who confess privately that they would not live another day with husbands if they had any other method of support. And yet, past the poor prostitute, the touch of a prostitute is leprous to them. There may be prostitution in marriage and proper commerce in the bawdy house. It depends upon the specific conditions attending the act and not where or how it's obtained.
Right, so she's comparing marriage itself to prostitution.
Right.
Because of, everything.
Well, it's an oft-cited comparison.
Sure.
Yes, it's, you're still captive to the man.
Mm-hmm.
When you condemn the poor woman, this is her writing again, whom you have helped drive to such a life, remember to visit your wrath upon the best men of the country as well. Until women come to hold men to equal account as they do the women with whom they consort, or until they regard these women as just as respectable as the men who support them, society will remain in its present state of moral excellence. There's a little sarcasm in that excellence. So, this is the world in which they enter New York. Now, some of these houses were very nice.
Quite agreeable.
Some of them were quite
orderly.
agreeable. Some of them were third class and dirty.
Yes.
Some of them were first class, as it said in the book. One of the fanciest ones was run by a woman named Annie Wood. This is a fake name. She made a lot of money as an actress and used her money to start a house. This is a house. Victoria was very impressed by this house. According to the Gentleman's Companion, Gentleman's Guide, she specialized in, quote, mulatto women. Something to think about. In the 1860 census, there were 588,000, quote-unquote, mulatto women in slave states. If you had any idea of the strength of white supremacy in that time. And, prostitution was a normal job. In the 1880 census, women would be listed as prostitutes for their job.
Wow.
In this house, they served French and New Orleans cuisine. They would have copies of Rembrandt's and other artists on the walls. Women would dress as virginal Southern belles in silk gowns with colorful sashes. And in the center of the Grand Conservatory where visitors were received was a copy of this Bernini statue of Daphne and Apollo. Bernini was this famous Italian sculptor. And the statue he made of the story of Daphne and Apollo is Daphne was the son of one of the wood god or the wood nymph. And Cupid, angered at Apollo's mocking of him, Cupid shot her with a lead arrow to forever hate Apollo. And he shot Apollo with, I think, a gold arrow, so he would always fall in love with Daphne.
Wow.
So he was constantly pursuing her. And the statue is this amazing statue. It's white marble, the one they had.
Oh, it's where his fingers are gripping her thighs.
She is trying to fly away. She's calling to her father to save her. She's nude. She's trying to fly away. She's reaching upward while Apollo drags her down to earth. And in the story and in the sculpture, in her fear, struggling to escape, Daphne transforms into a laurel tree. And in this sculpture, her feet are being turned into the roots of the tree.
Wow.
Because it's the only way she can escape this man. And Annie Wood said this statue summed up her life, and this is why she put it there.
I am Groot.
Wow.
And this is, that kind of thinking was also why Annie Wood, unknown to any of the Johns there, she kept a black book of every visitor, their occupation, their sexual proclivities, and she told every prostitute to get insider knowledge whenever possible.
Heidi fucking Fleiss.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So Victoria and Tennessee start working their way through the prostitute world. They start going to classier and classier places. And, of course, Buck's still doing his thing. And in order to make money, he arranges for them to meet Cornelius Vanderbilt, the Commodore.
Arranges for them to meet him
Yes.
in a sexual way?
Well, no.
Okay.
But, I'm sure he hoped something would happen.
Sure.
Now, Commodore Vanderbilt, of course, is one of the richest railroad magnates in the history of America. Excuse me. And he would meet anyone at his Washington Place townhouse, 10 Washington Place, if you want to go on the perv walk. He was, like most men in that era, he was an asshole. And he saw spirits, but, he saw spirits constantly. He saw a boy that his carriage had run over and killed. He saw a worker that his railroad had crushed to death. But he was also very scared of people fucking with him. He would have his barber burn his hair so no one could take it and use it against him.
Oh my God, that's so good.
When his wife, who was also his first cousin, she was the mother of his 12 kids. When she complained that he was always trying to fuck their teacher, he had his doctor send her to an insane asylum.
Jesus.
His wife?
Yes,
Cousin.
That was a
very
common thing.
Yes, the man had the property
Yeah.
And so she acquiesced, and she would go live in another house and just forever be docile until she
Become a
died.
tree.
In essence, his oldest son would find women for him to fuck, and his son said, "The old man is bound to have his way, and it is useless to oppose him." So he was constantly looking for
Jesus.
women. But he was also in very poor health at the time. He ate only rich foods, he had heart trouble, kidney stones, and large prostate. So he meets Tennessee and Victoria, and he immediately becomes enamored with them. One, Victoria is seeing spirits, and two, Tennessee, he was in love with her physically.
Yeah, she's a
Yes.
smoke show.
So
Tennessee is Tennessee.
So along with fucking him, she would also doctor him. She would give him enemas and massage his prostate, take him on walks. She took the rich food out of his diet, and he started feeling better. And when his wife died in 1868, he asked her to become the new Mrs. Vanderbilt.
He asked Tennessee to become the
Right.
new Mrs. Vanderbilt.
At that time, she said no,
Wow.
but she would sleep with him, and all the maids would note that when they went in the morning, she would often be in bed with him in the morning.
Yeah, why marry him? She's getting all the best parts out of it anyways. Other than, I mean,
Right.
she's massaging his prostate
Right.
and all that.
Was
which-
there any idea why she didn't want to, or?
I think they had just got there. I think it was
Yeah, yeah.
little too much too soon.
Yeah.
His description for her was ample, which is what he described her brain, hips, breasts. It's ample.
ample.
Ample and supple.
So as she's basically healing him physically, Victoria is working his spirit world. She's giving him messages from his mother, and then after he asked her, he said he would give her $100,000 if she could bring a vision of his dead father.
Jesus.
She said no, and instead she started giving him financial advice because prostitutes, especially high-class prostitutes, were sleeping with rich men and all
Yeah.
of these Wall Street men,
Yeah.
and all of these men would
Insider
confide-
knowledge.
That's right.
That is amazing.
Yeah, well, we're thinking about building a railroad down over here by Jersey or whatever.
Exactly.
Should come by sometime.
Cornelius, while I'm gently rubbing my 2 fingers over your prostate. I think you should invest in railroad bonds. Yeah, it's man.
And you remember when Victoria went to San Francisco briefly, and she was an actress.
Yes.
And she met a woman named Josie Manfield.
Yeah.
Now, Josie Manfield by this time, she had moved to New York herself and become a prostitute. And she was, there was a man named Jim Fisk, who was briefly in the Hetty Green episode, and he fell in love with her. He had a wife, of course, but he fell in love with her,
It was Victoria.
with Josie.
Oh, okay.
And he spent $30,000 to give her jewels. It was $5,000 more than the president's salary at the time.
Oh my God.
He gave her emeralds and a set of diamond necklace, earring, tiaras, pearls. And he would go to her house every day and tell her about what he was doing with finances and just spend his money on her. She had 2 new dresses of every sort for every day of the year. 2 velvet dresses, which were at least $500 a piece, thousands of dollars worth of laces, and so he's telling her secrets and giving her a ton of money. Now, while this is happening, Cornelius Vanderbilt is trying to work the market, and he's trying to make a lot of money. So, December 1868, this is only a few months after they've been there. The Commodore declares an 80% dividend on stock on the Central Railroad. So what this means is for every 5 shares you owe, he'll give you 4 shares. And according to, he talked to a newspaper guy, and they said, "Why do you do this?" And he said, "It's bound to go up, the price of the Central Pacific Railroad," was the one he owned.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "The price is bound to go up." Miss Woodhull said so in a trance. And it did.
While their sister would finger fucking my asshole.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the line's going to go northeast to southwest, judging by the 2 sturdy fingers.
Caressing my P-spot.
And so it did. It went from $134 a share to $165 a share. And he made profits on 3,000 shares, and he gave the profits to Victoria and Tennessee. There's $93,000 then, about $1.7 million today.
Good God.
Good Lord.
And then in 1869, this continues, this keeps going on, and they keep getting closer with Vanderbilt. And then in 1869, that from the Hetty Green episode, the price of gold just goes crazy. Now, in this time, gold was there was the gold standard,
Right.
and after the Civil War, we had greenbacks, cash, but gold was very volatile. It was very hard. There was no way to tell whether it'd go up or down.
Right, because they could find a new vein in some mine or
Right.
something. The supply was bound to change.
Right.
So in the spring of '69, gold falls to $131 a share. So Jim Fisk and his friend Jay Gould, they buy $7 million worth. And they have this deal. What they're going to do is they're going to they're going to corner the market.
Right.
They're going to buy as much as they can, and they're going to keep raising the price. And then they have a deal where they're going to tell someone in the Treasury about what's going on. They're going to offer them a profit. And there's a lot more convoluted than this. And they even get hold of President Grant. And he's later cleared. This is one of his many scandals that he's later cleared for. But apparently he reads a telegram from them about what's happening, and he just doesn't reply to it.
Did he invest? Does anybody know?
His wife did.
Crafty old Grant.
And so they're paying off his wife and a friend of hers for profits that they're making off this gold. So now, second week of, Victoria, Jim Fisk is sleeping with Mansfield, and he's telling her all these things.
Yeah.
And so Victoria, in September 1869, she has a vision with the Commodore, and she tells him to buy gold at $132 a share. Right?
Okay.
He puts all of his reserves in it. He buys $9.5 million worth of shares. It's $182 million today.
Oh my God.
By September 23rd, the price is at $141 a share. And she goes to him and she says, I have a vision saying that I saw gold and a golden bubble burst, and I saw the number 151. As soon as it gets to 150, sell. Coincidentally, that's the same number Fisk and Gould were planning to sell at.
No shit.
So now,
Was she fucking Gould?
she was not. That was Josie Mansfield.
Ah.
So now the price keeps rising, right? And it keeps going up and up, and the market's just going insane at this point.
It's like his prostate.
Yeah.
And the Commodore tells Victoria, she said, if this is good advice, I'll give you half of my profits.
Oh my God.
And so the price keeps rising and rising, and everybody's going insane. And no one knows how to stop the price from rising except the government.
Uh-oh.
So, in order to quell the insanity that's going on, the government is going to basically flood the market and buy up as much as they can and to solve the price. I'm doing a bad job explaining this, but
Okay,
this is
but at what price did they decide to do this?
well, here's the thing. Fisk and Gould were told the day before it was going to happen.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And so they know it's going to happen. So they sell, and the price eventually rises to $164 a share. And then within 30 minutes after the announcement of the government's plan to sell all of their gold to lower the price drops to $132. And the Commodore made $1.3 million then.
Jeez.
It's about, I think it's like something like, what do you give? It's about $24 million.
Mm-hmm.
And about there's all these stories like I guess 25 people had committed suicide by the end of the day.
Sure.
And it was called Black Friday. So Victoria and Tenny make about $12 million from that.
Wow.
So they immediately, after they get this, they immediately buy these two parlors at the Hoffman House in Broadway between 24th and 25th Street. They start their own brokerage firm called Woodhull, Chafflin and Company. And it's just this beautiful, each parlor was decorated with oil paintings, statuary, green velvet sofas, a piano, making it look, as a reporter observed, like a lady's drawing room. A portrait of their patron, Commodore Vanderbilt, was displayed next to a painting of two plump angels.
Wow.
Pink arms wrapped around a gold cross under the inscription, "Simply to thy cross I cling." And within a month, they were making so much money, they moved out and bought an even bigger, or leased out an even bigger area.
And this is they're making the money from their brokerage?
Now they're
or from
making money from their brokerage. And they have this giant opening in February 1870. Boss Tweed shows up. Commodore Vanderbilt shows up. Josie Mansfield and Jim Fisk show up. It takes 100 policemen to clear the crowds. And now this is the first female-owned brokerage firm in the history of the country.
Jesus.
And so finally, all of these women have a place where they can go.
Yeah.
Housewives start showing up. Prostitutes start investing. And as they invest, they also, here's a little gossip. Here's what I'm hearing around town. Here's what I know.
Okay, yeah, it's like an intelligence firm.
Mm-hmm. And Victoria and Tennessee become the hottest thing in town. They ride to work in a golden chariot
What?
with a solid gold pen behind in their ear. And they're wearing identical Empress blue velvet gowns. And here's a picture of them. I'll hold it up to here. Yeah.
Their finger up somebody's butt.
John, you see it?
Yeah, I do see it. You have something on your screen there.
Yeah, well, it's hard for us to see. Oh, and they're whipping
They're
these
whipping Jim
men.
Fisk, Jay Gould, Commodore Vanderbilt, and some other guy.
And this was like in the New Yorker or something.
Yes,
They're whipping them?
yes, because they're
They're
driving.
the ones
them.
driving the,
Yes.
the
Wow.
carriage.
Driving the bulls and bears of Wall Street. This is the Evening Telegraph, 1870, February 18th.
Well, it shows you just how easy men, especially big men, powerful men, are literally brought to their knees. Is, you know, the root to a man's heart is through his butthole.
Well, I mean, yeah, that is the thing, right? Is that, like, you know, the whole you know, amassing power through, you know, the prostitution thing for suffrage and everything else is like this thing of, you know, the loner man, especially the oligarchs, right? And they're still men. They're not going to go fucking, you know, tell these other jackasses they're doing business with what's going on, but, like, you know, in the company of you know, like, women.
Half of the time, that's why they see a prostitute in the first place, is just to have somebody to talk to.
Right.
Oh, right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And a lot of them, yeah, they were saying would just talk. Yeah. Right. You know, but
in this day and age, women, there is no way for women to have power over a life unless she was a prostitute for the most part, or never married.
Right, and embracing you know, femininity to that extreme was kind of what, you know, I think probably, you know, got them the most power, of just being like, what are we doing here? Like, we need to, if this is the only place we can go and be left alone and be, like, able to do whatever we want to do, then let's go do that. Yeah. And then fight out from that corner.
Right. I mean, all the first female landowners in the U.S. were all madams.
Yeah. And like, we talk about a lot on the program that we don't have enough women. And one of the things is that, like, men were keeping history and kept women out of it. Yeah. And a lot of times the only women that were allowed into history were women that were madams.
And I mean, and they played the game. And they did it.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a law that was passed. One of the only reasons women were allowed to own land is because fathers didn't want their sons-in-laws to have it.
Yes.
So they passed a law so the daughter could
keep it in the family.
Yes.
Right, yeah. Not in that guy's family, that jackass.
Right.
Fucking my daughter.
So they became known as the bewitching brokers, the queens of finance. And in the back offices of their new area, the back offices were women only. And men would run the brokerage in Victoria and Tennessee, would entertain female clients and offer them strawberries dipped in chocolate.
Oh.
The Commodore would show up daily. And then so many men showed up, some to invest, most to
get milked.
That they had to put a sign in the window saying, all men will state their business at once and then retire. It says, if you're a man, show up, tell us what you want, and then you're done.
Yeah.
And
damn, that is fucking gold. What do you want? Nut or cash?
Both?
All right, fine.
All right. Which one first?
So with this newfound success, they were able to lease a large brownstone, furnish it with, as you know, all of the luxury they could find.
Yeah.
And so what happens when a Chafflin gets a house?
Oh, spirits start talking to it?
Kind of. The whole family shows up.
That's right.
Immediately,
that's right.
15 members of the family show up.
Jesus.
Roxy shows up.
15?
Right, yep. Roxy, Utica, Zulu Maud shows up. The son, who's now a teenager with the mind of an infant.
Oh, and the no teeth?
The no teeth.
I can milk prostate too. Do you have any fruit by the foot? What?
He wants some fruit by the foot.
Why does he want fruit by the foot?
Because he can gum it down, Aaron. Think.
That makes sense.
You can gum it down.
Huh?
So almost the whole family shows up. Polly shows up. She was the one that carried that baby around for 2
Almost.
days.
There's 15 of them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everybody.
Shit. Who else is left out?
Well, Canning, her first husband, shows up.
Did Utica come?
Utica and Roxy show up. They're almost the first ones there. Canning shows up. He's just fucked up on morphine and alcohol. And Victoria takes pity on him and says, all right, get in here.
Even with Captain Blood there?
Yes. Well, because Captain Blood's they got divorced, but, she's... It's not like...
and they have a
Colonel
free
Blood.
love thing.
She's not sleeping with Canning. It's just pity.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Man, shit.
But Roxy and Utica show up, and immediately they raid the closet and play dress up, and then they just start getting drunk all the time.
Oh, my God.
And when they run out of alcohol, Utica drinks bay rum, which is your cologne.
Yeah.
How do they run out of alcohol? They're milking it out of the fucking Commodore's prostate by the dollar.
Well, because they're not going to buy it. They're just drinking it. Victoria in Tennessee have to send people out to go buy it. But
No.
Utica and
I think
Roxy...
she's drinking it faster than the people can bring it in.
Yeah.
What about the laudanum? I mean, go for that
she's
before
still
the cologne.
She's still hooked on the laudanum.
Oh, my God.
And then Roxy, anytime she wants money, she pawns jewelry. She pawns Tennessee and Victoria's jewelry.
Damn.
And
God, this is why we can't have nice things.
But also, what is it about this family that keeps allowing all the scroungers to come back, right?
Oh, it's family, man.
It's family, right? So, like, do they hate it when they show up, or do they kind of love it?
I don't think they love it.
Yeah.
But I think there's a resignation where, what am I going to do?
It's an assignation.
Yeah, there's...
Dude, it's definitely lots of assignation going on.
Buck's like, you think any of these fucking millionaires need laudanum elixir?
This
Well-
is the house that assignation built.
Buck has also discovered that he doesn't have to make life elixir anymore because he can just show up at the at the brokerage, and he charges a new suit to his daughters, doesn't tell them. Sometimes he would be at the front of the brokerage firm. Someone would show up with all of these bonds, and he would just pocket them.
Damn.
One time, some guy showed up with $3,000 in bonds, about $57,000 today. Buck just took them and walked out.
Oh, my God.
So now they're getting a bad rap from Buck being around, right?
Not yet. I mean, there's plenty of scumbags
travel
back
slowly.
then,
Yeah, but I mean, shit. This is a major brokerage firm, women-owned, first of its kind. Like, the knives are out for them to get. I mean, that's what happens. People love a build-up story, and then they love to tear you down.
Well,
right?
just wait, John. Now it's not necessarily Buck. They're making a lot of money. So what's let Buck do his thing. Whatever. He's harmless now. He's not beating us anymore, right?
Yeah.
And the house itself becomes a salon. It becomes a place where fashionable people show up and they talk about goings on of the day. And they're famous people would show up. Stephen Pearl Andrews was this guy, a socialist, spiritualist, Marxist guy. His wife was a spiritual healer.
Damn.
His wife, he was the first guy to bring Marx to the United States. First guy to publish Marx in the United States. Yeah.
I feel angles tickling my prostate.
And Benjamin Butler, this famous politician, would show up. Stephen Pearl Andrews, his wife was a spiritual healer, and she told Victoria to be careful. She'd be betrayed by a member of her own family.
Wow.
I mean, it went all
Didn't
around.
need
It
the
was pretty
spirits
obvious.
to tell me that.
But Benjamin Butler was a great get for them. He was a former Massachusetts state senator. He was a Civil War major general. He was known as the Beast of the Big Easy.
The Beast of the Big Easy.
Yeah,
Huh?
or just the Beast. He basically ran New Orleans for the Union during the Civil War. And here's a description from yeah, John, go on.
We had bayonets going into men. Bay rum is 2 for 1.
He was known as the Beast because he was very hard on people in New Orleans, But you're a conquering, you're a reconquering nation, basically.
Yeah, occupying force.
One time, someone what was it? I think he tore down the Union flag, so he sentenced the guy to death. And,
Damn.
Oh my God.
And his family, the guy's family pleaded with Butler to not do it. He met with the family and he said, "No, I'm going to do it. You better see him in jail." But he also promised the wife that, if she ever comes on hard times, he would look after her. And eventually later, when she did come on hard times, she met him in Washington, D.C., and he basically paid for her house and for her to get a job. And he was a weird man of contradictions.
Interesting.
Very mob.
Yes.
Very mafia Tony Soprano.
Yes, there was a lot of shady dealing with him. Here's a description from an officer. He kind of looked like Sipowicz, from NYPD Blue.
Yeah.
Dope.
He was described as an astounding figure on a horse. Short, fat, shapeless, no neck, squinting, and a very bald-headed, and above all, that singular, half-defiant look.
Does look like
Matt,
Sipowicz.
you are fucking killing it with the Sipowicz reference, dude.
You
That's
nailed it.
Sipowicz. Look at any picture of him, he looks like Sipowicz.
No, it's Sipowicz on a horse.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Now I'm gonna kill your husband. But if you meet me in D.C., I'll take care of you.
Told you, if he puts up the flag, I'll fucking smoke him.
And guess what he did? He tore the flag.
Went ahead and did it, motherfucker.
He was a very powerful congressman at the time, and some people said he was the voice of President Grant at times, people would say.
Really?
So he held a lot of power. And so Victoria eventually took to him right away. And there were all of these rumors about Victoria and him, and people would say that Victoria visited him at night and tried to convince him to make the Judiciary Committee create a 16th Amendment for women's suffrage. And a newspaper man once asked me if this was true, because there was a rumor. This is the rumor from the newspaper man. Quote, is it true that he offered to help women's suffrage if she would let him, quote, an opportunity to feast his eyes upon her naked person?
Damn.
Ample.
And his reply was, half-truth kills.
Interesting.
Which is to say,
Maybe?
don't pretend it's not true, or it's maybe true. It's either true or it isn't. And if it's true, I'm not going to tell you.
Well, anyways, women got the right to vote.
Nope.
And if Sipowitz's prostate had never flowed better.
Never flowed. Prostate is flowing fine.
So Victoria, she's getting caught up, and she's finally seeing what Demosthenes had predicted. She's feeling like she's part of a movement, and she has power. And at times she's meeting with Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady, and exchanging letters with them. And they sense the power of her and how much hold she has over especially men.
Yeah.
And 1870, she's 32, and she posts a notice in the New York Herald. And the election isn't until 1872, but this is the notice she posts in the New York Herald.
In what year again?
The election's in 1872. This is 1870. She's 32 years old. And
she takes out an ad, basically.
Basically.
Okay.
But no one was had any idea that she would do this until she did it. And this is what she writes. While others of my sex devoted themselves to a crusade against the laws that shackle the women of the country, I assert my individual independence. While others sought to show that there was no valid reason why women should be treated as being inferior to man, I boldly entered the arena of politics and business and exercised the rights I already possessed. I therefore claim the right to speak for the unenfranchised women of the country, and I now announce myself as a candidate for the presidency.
Shit.
Very nice. Very bold.
1870.
1870.
Fucking A.
And in order to prop herself up, she in Tennessee started a newspaper called the Woodhull and Chafflin Weekly. And this is largely to promote her political power.
Yes.
And in the paper, she writes, I am the evangel. I am the evangel. And evangel is gospel.
Right.
I am the gospel,
Yeah.
she says. And in 1870, November, she writes that the 16th Amendment is stuck in the judiciary, that it doesn't matter because the Constitution defines women as citizens, and therefore citizens have the right to vote. So they don't even need to make an amendment. December 1870, in her paper, she publishes what would be known as the Woodhull Memorial. And a memorial is a written statement of facts or petition presented to a legislative body. And she says she got this idea. She would do most of her writings asleep in a trance, and Colonel Blood would sit next to her and write down what she said.
Jesus.
Was anyone nutting during the... This is my usual is what I associate
Yes.
with trances and writing.
Yeah.
Someone's coming.
And she says she wrote this memorial. She just woke up from a trance, and Colonel Blood handed it to her and said, "This is what you said." Now, most people also said that everything she wrote kind of sounds like Benjamin Butler wrote it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's in his handwriting.
Because it's largely legalese and says, in the Constitution, this,
Right.
therefore this. And this
Yes,
provision
yes,
says this, and
yes.
therefore this.
Yeah.
But because of this memorial, it sweeps through all of these powerful offices. And December of 1870, she writes that, right? And because of this, she's invited to make a presentation on the memorial to the House Judiciary and the Senate Judiciary Committee in January 11th, 1871. I believe she's the first woman to ever be allowed to speak to them.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so she goes and she does this, January 11th, 1870. And it's an insane meeting between everybody. This is completely unprecedented. And she's a little nervous at the time, and she starts to wilt a little bit, but then she's the spirits reach her.
Oh.
Yes. I mean, that was what I was going to say. It was like the other like thing about, this rise to power. Like half of it is like embracing, like the femininity and like, where it gets pushed to on the fringes of society. But the other thing that really helps them get into power is this fear of spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And that is probably even more powerful than anything throughout the entire story.
Whose fear?
Right.
Everybody's fear. Everybody is so spooked out by everything. Everybody is so like heebie-jeebied. I think post-Civil War, everybody's seeing like ghosts over their shoulders,
Right.
and they are they're dealing with that big time, and it's working.
And her and she fits in with Stanton and Susan B. Anthony because it's not just the voting. She wants divorce and all of these other things to be legal, and free love especially.
Yeah.
But this is what so the spirits hit her, and according to Isabella Beecher, she's infused with fire and freedom, and she says to them, part of the thing she says, she points out the founding fathers used the word persons, specifying neither male nor female.
Mm-hmm.
But after the adoption of the 14th Amendment, it was found that still more legislation was required to secure the right to vote to all those who were declared to be citizens. And the 15th Amendment was passed by Congress and ratified the states. We must regard this amendment as though there had been no Negroes requiring enfranchisement. We must divorce our minds from the Negro and look at the Constitution as it is. The basis of equality is constructed by all and for all, and from which all partake of equal rights, privileges, and immunities. The sovereign will of the people is expressed in our written Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. The Constitution makes no distinction of sex. The Constitution defines a woman born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction therewith of to be a citizen. Recognizes the right of citizens to vote. All people of both sexes have the right to vote, unless prohibited by special limiting terms. No such limiting terms exist in the Constitution.
So she's arguing that there doesn't even need to be an amendment.
Right. She's arguing that
it's already there. It's already
everybody's
there.
allowed to vote.
Yeah.
And this sweeps through all of Congress. And Charles Sumner, he's the senior senator from Massachusetts. He tells of this meeting with these other men and other politicians, and he says, "Does anyone have anything that can counteract this?" And they say, "No, we don't." And he tells Isabella Beecher, he says, "This is the first time in my life I realized that disenfranchisement means the same to you that it would for me."
Really?
A lot of these guys, they were just like, women don't want the right to vote. They don't care.
Yeah.
This is the first time for many men that realize women actually, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
they did. They're like you.
Right.
Yeah.
And her speech, thousands of copies of her speech are sent around the country. She's invited to meet with President Grant, which she does, and he says, "This chair may be yours one day." But as her success grows and her name spreads, her history is slowly being brought out.
Right.
A woman in Chicago, a member of the AWSA, more conservative one, remembered the newspaper stories about her family. And her antecedents, this is a word that would forever haunt her. Antecedents are basically
Yes.
your history, right?
Yeah.
And the history of your history. And she takes a carriage ride with Catherine Beecher. You remember Catherine Beecher?
Mm-hmm.
And Catherine Beecher is condemning all of these things she's saying. Catherine Beecher wants the right to vote too, but she doesn't want it with divorce and women's rights with all these other ways. And Victoria says while they're riding, she sees devils swimming around her head. And then Victoria brings up, what about your brother? You know, he's anti-free love, and yet I hear all these stories about him having free love.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Beecher storms out of the carriage and storms off and calls her the devil and says, we should have nothing to do with her.
Wow.
She referred to her in Tennessee as those two prostitutes.
Damn.
And I mean, she was. And Harry Beecher Stowe would call her a harlot. But back in New York City, things are getting even worse now.
Uh-oh.
Polly's husband, a man named Dr. Spar, moves in, and he teams up with Roxy against Victoria in Tennessee. And so Roxy wants her kids back, so she writes a letter to the Commodore saying she knows what he did, and she wants money.
Oh God.
So immediately he just cuts them out of his life. He doesn't want to deal with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
A newspaper reporter asked him about it, and he says, "They're no friends of mine."
Meanwhile, my prostate's exploding. I'm fat again. I got gout. Depressed. My teeth are falling out.
I'm the saddest bird you ever seen. You ever fuck with birds, Joe?
You ever fuck with exercising your prostate?
Joe, you ever nut so hard you feel your prostate twitch?
It'd make you rich.
I mean, that's the thing, right, too, is that, like, you're like, okay, so here's the base of operations. The $1 million hub is the brokerage firm, and now we're going on the campaign trail, and we've left just the people that can't even afford to get booze, so they drink cologne in the house.
Right.
Oh, my God.
Right. And why did Hetty Green tell her son not to get into politics?
Because he couldn't pass the sniff test.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with Victoria
You can
Woodhull.
get rich and be a scumbag.
Yeah.
And you can also be a politician and be a scumbag, but
people do start looking
they
deeper into your background.
Right.
But, you know.
But
it's a
in the
different
meantime,
time.
she isn't slowed down by this. She's decided that she's made her money, and this is her cause now.
Yeah, I mean, she's made enough money in her time to never worry about money again, right?
And now her cause is women's suffrage, and she's running for president now.
Right. This is like the fucking cause. Because that was the thing I was thinking about the whole time. I was like, where are they going with this? Like, what's the agenda?
Right.
You know what I mean? The rest of them, it's get high and live high on the hog.
Right.
But for Victoria, it's obviously like, we're going somewhere. Like, even her leaving Hollywood, where she was making so much money, I was like, why would she ever do that? Why would she come back? But, like, there is something driving her, and it is a principled...
Yeah, she said there's more. There's more than just making money and fucking people and doing stage shows.
Yeah.
So she's still making her speeches, and she makes this speech for the NWSA. And it's, for most attendees, it's one of the greatest speeches they've ever seen. And she ends it by saying, women are entirely unaware of their power. Like an elephant led by a string, they are subordinated by those who are most interested in holding them in slavery. And she says, we shall proceed to call another convention expressly to frame a new constitution and erect a new government. We mean treason, we mean secession, and on 1,000 times grander than the scale that of the South, we are plotting revolution. We will overthrow the bogus republic and plan a government of righteousness in its stead.
Oh, my God.
And these women just
Lose their shit.
they lose it. This is
They're hysterical.
this
is why you can't run things.
They've never. Not only have they not been allowed to talk like this, no one's ever talked like this
Yeah.
or hinted at it before.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's a woman who's saying what they want. Like, this is how we feel, and it's coming out.
Right.
But the morning of her speech, while she's writing to this speech, there's a newspaper article that Colonel Blood hides from her.
Ooh.
He hides
So she
on
doesn't
the
see
way
it.
to give this speech.
Yeah, so she doesn't see it before she gives the speech. And in the article, it says that Roxy has gone to court and filed charges for warrant against James Blood for corrupting her daughters against her.
You can go do that in court.
Uh-huh.
What's the law being broken there?
Yeah, fucking...
Whatever.
Yeah,
Those
fucked
bullshits.
up influence. Like,
yeah. Okay.
And all this does is slowly things start spinning away. And the court...
And the prophecy is coming true.
And
the
the-
vision
yes.
is coming true.
And in the court, of course, because now she's more famous than ever, the court is packed. And Roxy tells the judge, my daughters were good daughters until they got in with that man Blood. He threatened my life several times. He said he would not go to bed until he washed his hands in my blood. And as this is happening, Tennessee shouts and just disrupts everything and says, like, this is nonsense, like, but Tennessee's not as eloquent as Victoria, and this only muddies the waters more. And then Victoria's called to the stand, and they ask about the housing arrangement. They say, well, you're living with the man who's your ex-husband, but what's your other ex-husband doing there? And they call this an irregular arrangement. And suddenly,
Quite irregular.
Suddenly, she's not just running for president. There's all these other things coming up, and she's less and less reputable every time.
Right, but it is like the thing. It's like, well, I'm just taking care of everybody because I have all the money.
Right.
I mean, like it's really not that hard a story to sell if you have.
Everyone's a fucking mooch. I'm basically the matriarch of the family.
My mom's a psycho.
Yeah.
Buck's ripping